Welcome back to the Unnamed History Show, guys. Hosted by me, Gingeyy. Today, we'll be discussing Assassin's Creed Origins. This is my second video in the Assassin's Creed series, so if you haven't seen my first video where I discussed Odyssey, go check it out. Same rules apply as always. Only doing the main story to keep the video short, only discussing religion that is extremely present in the game, and only talking about characters in the scope of the game. With that being said, let's get right into it. Assassin's Creed Origins opens up with Ptolemy riding on an elephant in the Siwa Oasis in 49 BCE. I'm a little disappointed with Assassin's Creed Origins as they didn't specifically say it was Ptolemy the 13th. Sure, they give us the time period so we can deduce it, but still, they couldn't put 4 more characters on the screen. Leading up to 49 BCE, Julius Caesar was in a Roman civil war with Pompey the Great over who should rule. Pompey took his troops to Egypt where Ptolemy the 13th had him killed. This was in hopes that it would create allies with Caesar as he had essentially taken out the enemy for him. Caesar, however, was very angry and disappointed as he did not have the chance now to win the war and pardon Pompey. When arriving in Egypt to discuss this with Ptolemy, he met eyes with Cleopatra. He immediately fell in love with her beauty and charm. This caused him to assist in the Alexandria War to come in 47 BCE, in which Caesar and Cleopatra joined forces to take out Ptolemy the 13th so Cleopatra could have the throne. Let's talk about Bayek's position real quick. Right after the Ptolemy elephant scene, we get a 1 year later text and some more cutscenes telling us that our main character is a Magi. It is believed they started as mercenaries that collected a large amount of work between Rome and Egypt. This large amount of work from Egypt gave the mercenaries incentive to shelter in the area. As the dominoes fell, the mercenaries slowly became more and more integrated into the Egyptian power ladder, creating Magi as an occupation around 1500. By the time of the New Kingdom in Egypt, 1570 to 1069 BCE, the word Magi became the Egyptian translation of police. Now, as far as I could tell, Origins acts as if Bayek is a solo Magi. Magi plural, however, is more of a police force and military for Egypt, as explained earlier. Their main use was in battle, such as soldiers, or assisting in securing forts. If Bayek wasn't on a personal quest to avenge his son, he might instead have been patrolling all day around some fort. But we'll give Ubisoft a pass because that doesn't make a very interesting game, so they had to take some liberties there.
The guarding of temples was once a sacred duty entrusted to the Magi. Now, it falls to no one.
While Assassin's Creed Origins obviously talks about each historical character gradually throughout the game, the quest Aya Blade of the Goddess goes in depth with all the characters as well as having them interact with each other. Ptolemy's full name is Ptolemy the 13th Theos Philopator, which means the father-loving god. Ptolemy took his throne in 51 BCE when he was just 11. He became co-ruler with his sister Cleopatra because she was 18. While they were brother and sister, they also were married, because that's just how they did stuff back then. In 48 BCE, war broke when he attempted to overthrow Cleopatra to become the sole leader of Egypt. His plan failed and he drowned at only 15 in 47 BCE while trying to escape Julius Caesar. In Assassin's Creed Origins, Ptolemy looks closer to his 20s than being 15. However, we'll give Ubisoft a pass here because 1, it's a rated M for mature game, and 2, I'm pretty sure there's a video game law in which you can't kill children, the same reason why Skyrim and Fallout kids are essentially immortal. in the quest Aya, Blade of the Goddess, as mentioned before, they don't explicitly show Ptolemy drowning. Instead, they show him getting attacked by crocodiles, but they don't show his death by crocodiles. So, we'll just assume Origins got it right with him drowning. Cleopatra, or more specifically Cleopatra VII, was the co-ruler, sister, and wife to Ptolemy XIII. Cleopatra ruled along with her father, Ptolemy XII, whom died when she was only 18. Egyptian law said that the females needed a male to rule with them, so she became co-ruler with her brother, Ptolemy XIII. However, Cleopatra was the clear ruler, as her face was on all the coins and on all documentation. She also was fluent in many languages. That meant that she could make diplomatic decisions and negotiate with other powers in an efficient way without needing a translator. When other nations met, nations were more likely to speak with her than Ptolemy. This also, however, meant that she made many decisions without the council or Ptolemy being there. This angered the council and Ptolemy for those obvious reasons. She was exiled from Egypt in 48 BCE, brainstorming on how to return to power. She's believed to have snuck into Caesar's palace inside a rug. After meeting her, Caesar fell in love with her immediately. Caesar was 52 and Cleopatra was only 21. They joined forces and Caesar took over Egypt, appointing Cleopatra into the throne. Cleopatra and Caesar had the same ideas for military strategy and diplomacy, which brought them closer together. Caesar and Cleopatra had a son named Caesarion, but because Caesar was married to another woman, he was not Caesar's heir. Cleopatra also married her brother again, Ptolemy XIV, when she was 22 and Ptolemy XIV was 12. Cleopatra and Caesar's relationship, however, was not the stereotypical secret mistress bastard son relationship. Caesar and Cleopatra were very open with their relationship, and Caesar acknowledged and loved his son. However, Rome did not acknowledge the son. After Caesar was assassinated, Mark Antony rose to power and fell in love and wed Cleopatra the same as Caesar. Years later, Antony and his relative Octavian got involved in the same civil war Caesar and Pompey did. Octavian became victorious and had Cleopatra captured, in which she poisoned herself with a snake. Once again, most of this is shown in Aya, Blade of the Goddess and Endgame, in which Cleopatra sneaks inside a carpet and Caesar immediately sides with Cleopatra because of her beauty. They show Pompey's head to Caesar, but Caesar barely reacts, only saying a few lines on the matter because the game is trying to speed up the alliance between Rome and Egypt. In reality, Caesar would have been much more hostile and agitated over the situation. Caesar and Cleopatra team up in the war with the side objective of locating Alexander the Great's tomb to use the relics of Eden. Now, Alexander the Great's tomb has never been found, and we still search for it to this day. So who knows, maybe the Apple of Eden is in his tomb. The alliance accelerates the war, in which Cleopatra wins and has a son with Caesar, which they accurately name Caesarion in the game. However, Cleopatra claims that had Caesar not been assassinated, Caesarion would have taken the throne. While obviously we don't know for sure how history would have changed, it's hard to say Caesarion would have taken the throne. As mentioned before, he wasn't really recognized as the proper son of Caesar. The game even says themselves that the citizens call Cleopatra the tyrant's whore. And so there probably would have been another civil war in Rome, which it seems there always is, as to whether Caesarion is the proper ruler or not. I know if I don't mention pyramids or tombs in this video, everybody's going to be wondering why I didn't. The reason is real simple. There isn't much commentary I can do over it. The pyramids are the pyramids. It's kind of hard to mess them up. Alexandria was one of the most popular cities during the reign of the Ptolemies, so it makes sense that a large percentage of the game happens in this area. The area attracted scholars, writers, artists, and any other great person from civilization you can think of. As for the Library of Alexandria, it was an amazing treasure. Every book that came in or out of Egypt or was written in Egypt was copied and put in the library. Sometimes the library would just take the original and give the copy back to the author without telling them. This meant that anything and everything was inside the Library of Alexandria. It was basically an ancient version of Google or the internet. If you wanted anything, it had to be found in the Library of Alexandria because the Library of Alexandria held all knowledge. Just imagine where we could be if the Library of Alexandria wasn't burnt down. Even more prevalent in the game than Alexandria is Memphis, which makes sense because it's the ancient capital of Egypt. I would estimate 40 to 50% of the game takes place here. It's where most side missions are, where you do the most leveling up, where you get a large amount of equipment, and where the bureau is located in the endgame. And this all adds up when you learn that, quote, Memphis played a role in the lives of the people. Kings ruled there, commerce took place in the markets, the great religious temples drew pilgrims and tourists, and some of the most famous kings of the country constructed their great monuments in or near the city, end quote. It was also a very religious settlement, hence 90% of the quests in Memphis taking you to a temple or talking to a priest. It was such an economic settlement as well, as discussed, because it was on the edge of the Nile. Assassin's Creed Origins got this 100%. For this section, much like I did in Odyssey, I'll be focusing on the main gods shown in the game because the Egyptian, Roman, and Greek mythologies is crazy when gone in depth. The easiest way for me to do this was just to do the Trials of the Animus, which show Anubis and Sobek. The name Anubis literally means decay. Anubis is depicted everywhere as a black canine jackal hybrid. Anubis originally was seen as the protector of the dead, seeing over mummification and punishing those that disturbed tombs. Anubis was also the son of Osiris and his right-hand man. However, as time went on, Anubis and Osiris's mythology got more murky and they slowly merged more or less into one character. After death, the heart of one's soul was put on the famous scales of gold. The heart would be compared to the feather of truth from Moat, the goddess of justice, harmony, and truth. How the scale tipped affected your fate. This is what inspires the feather being rubbed against all the assassinated target's neck. It's also why Bayek's son being stabbed in the heart is so important. If the heart was damaged at all during life, it affected how you lived in the afterlife because it could not be weighed on the scale. Sobek is depicted as a god with a crocodile head. He is seen as the creator of order in the universe, or sometimes the universe itself. However, even though he brought order, he is often seen as chaotic or unpredictable. He rose from the quote-unquote dark water and created the Nile, so he is seen as the god that brings strength and fertility. Most Egyptians worship him to bring fertility to their families and crops, as well as the hope that crocodiles stay calm by appeasing him. This doesn't have much to do with the Assassin's Creed Origins story, but I thought it was good to include, so I made a little miscellaneous category. When we first get the hidden blade in Assassin's Creed Origins, it is met with a dialogue where Aya says this weapon killed Xerxes. I never noticed this the first time I played the game, but replaying these games for the Unnamed History show, I really liked that touch because Xerxes' cause of death was assassination. While it's a subtle detail, I thought it was good enough to throw in here. With all that being said, I'm going to give Assassin's Creed Origins a solid 6 out of 10 for historical accuracy. Reason being is because they don't really go into the historical characters until the end of the game, towards Aya, Blade of the Goddess, as described before. However, the locations or world building that they did is really accurate, such as the tombs, Alexandria, Memphis, as described before, which bumps it up a little bit more above a 5. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.